Thanks for bearing with us. I'm learning all the new technology.
Yeah.
Jacqueline, we just take advantage of because she knows it all.
Y'all too kind.
You never know how much you miss someone till they're like not physically here.
All right, we're good to go. And now you can close it up.
All right, and we are live on YouTube. And you can go ahead and start the meeting.
All right, so call to order at 6:02. Who's going to do roll call?
I will be.
Okay,
Brian,
present.
Carl,
Yes.
Colton,
Yes, I'm present, joining you from the road, so sorry I won't be on camera.
Dawn,
Present.
Roger.
Here.
Susan emailed me that she was not able to attend tonight. Tina. Here. And we are good to go.
Okay, do we have any guest business today?
Doesn't look like anyone's in the audience as a guest.
Correct.
All right, so on to action items.
Brian?
Yes,
I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda.
okay,
Go on.
go ahead.
I'd like to amend it so instead of us talk about the meeting frequency on discussion items, I'd like to have a discussion about our relevancy with the park department up and running. I'm just curious what everybody feels like as far as how relevant we are. So I'd like to replace that. I make a motion to replace the meeting frequency with a discussion on relevancy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, so the motion passes. We will update the meeting discussion items and replace meeting frequency with a discussion around the relevancy of the park board. So I'm seeing, it looks like Jill is not there. Is that correct? So
I'm here, Brian.
oh, that is, okay, sorry, I can't see you very well there.
That's me.
That is you. Okay, so all right, so I guess we'll discuss. Go ahead and do you want to bring up what you wanted to discuss, Tina?
So we first
No.
have action items on the agenda.
Right.
And then I believe that she was talking
Oh,
about.
okay, yes. Okay, so we do need to get to the action items. Okay, so approve the September 9th park board minutes. Jill?
No, Jill is on a work program.
Yeah, the minutes are generally called by the chair for approval.
All right, sorry.
No
Can I get a motion to approve the September 9th park board minutes?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Sustained.
Okay, looks like it passes. So we will approve the September 9th park board minutes. All right, so 2025 work program, Jill.
Yes, thank you. So each year, the Parks Board reviews their work plan and staff prepares a draft for you for your consideration tonight. This pending your comments and approval is then forwarded on to the city council, and at the joint meeting of the city council will approve that, or at a subsequent meeting. So before you, I have prepared a draft work program, and it looks pretty similar to last year's, excuse me, in the format. So on there, we have review recreation amenities for inclusion at Westlake Park. That's the park down there that's opening up shortly for the trailhead of the Bayview Trail, as well as the dog park. Outreach to the community, attend meetings and organizations for just to spread awareness and get feedback from those groups on park-related initiatives or projects. And then the Eagle Ridge plan reviews, we have review 60% engineering. That's our next milestone for Eagle Ridge Park. And then, of course, attend the public meeting for playground designs and provide feedback and direction. And the Cedarwood Recreation Center, review preferred alternatives and make recommendations for amenities. And then take a look at the concept plans and provide input on the design for the North Cove Boat Launch Dock, or we've been calling it the North Cove Marina. And then visit to continue all your work to visit all the parks in 2025. And I apologize, that says 2024. Continue on through 2024, and then that will be amended to visit all the parks in 2025. So with that, that's just a jumping off point. If the park board has any questions or has any comments on that.
I have a question.
Sure.
So the outreach, is that something you want the board members to go out, not the department?
Well, those are two separate things. So
Okay.
the department continually is doing official meetings. We talk to the public during our events and we try our best to connect. But board members are representing the public side of parks. So if you are already attending any social clubs, PTAs with school, library board meetings, anything and everything, if you're a part of a trail association or maybe a boat club or a fishing club, anything that is recreation and anything that involves parks or trails or outdoors are all relevant. And so it's a way to always talk about what the city residents need versus what they have and what they want. And it's a good way to just get feedback and say, hey, did you know fishing or boating club that the dock was going to be redesigned at North
Right,
Club,
right.
at North Cove? Maybe they have opinions on that.
Right.
So it's a way to try to get the public to come to the meetings, to give feedback, and so the board can then continually represent the public.
But it's not, when I think outreach that we are making, that I'm going to make and try to get on Rotary or go to Rotary if I don't normally go to Rotary.
Yeah, it's more your normal routine.
Okay.
Think about what you're a part of today.
Okay.
Or maybe you have something you've been wanting to join and you're like, well, how does that work since I'm on the Parks Board?
Mm-hmm.
I know we've been over a conflict of interest in what we
Mhm.
can and can't. So for instance, if anyone ran for city council and became a council member, you wouldn't be an official Parks Board member
Right.
anymore. You could possibly become a liaison there. But you can always join outside clubs.
Okay.
So this is our entire action plan for 2025.
This is simply what this is the process, is where we bring it to you. This is your plan for the Parks Board. So we always take a first draft at, hey, here's what we think could be included based on what carried over from last year, or based on what work we know the department has coming up. But it's up to you to say, we want this as part of our work plan, or no, we're going to remove it, or yes, we want to add something else. So this is a completely open discussion for you to modify this. And then either accept it in today's meeting, or if you push it off, it would come back in the January meeting.
So would we be able to make amendments to this throughout the year? Or is this our only chance?
The official work program that you see here gets completed once a year. And once you have it finalized, it goes to the city council when you have your joint meeting. The city council officially adopts this as essentially your work plan. You can also think about it as goals. And once that's approved, they only approve it once a year. There's little to no reason to modify it because you can always work on things outside of here, but whatever you have on this paper is then what gets reviewed as, did these things get accomplished last year or not? So you want to think about high level items that are achievable.
Yeah, for instance, last year you had a very similar list, you've worked your way through that. It was naming the ball fields and trailhead. and naming the trail, as well as reviewing the Eagle Ridge 30% plans, things like that. So this is a similar to what last year's work program is. As you know, things come up through the year, and then those are items that we add to the park board's agenda. So it may not be reflected on this list, but we would then talk about them at your park board and put them out in the packet.
Okay, so this isn't the entirety, it's just these are kind of some of the high level goals for 2025.
Yeah, and when we look at those milestones, we want to make sure that this board is engaged in their projects. And so we like to set just kind of the framework or the backbone of it, and then keep us guided during our meetings of what, this is on your work plan, and we'll bring that out and discuss it and ask for action or discussion depending on what the items are. It also gives the city council milestones in which to be reported back to. So at our joint meeting, then we go through the work program and report out, and then also have them approve the upcoming. They can add things to that work plan as well, and they can alter it. But this is a good framework. Yeah, Roger.
Isn't this what this list is? It's 2024. I think Brian thinks it's 2025. I could be wrong.
It is 2025. It's the proposed work plan for 2025.
Okay, but at the top it says 20.
You are correct. Yeah. And then, yeah, so we'll make that change.
Roger, you have a question? I'm sorry.
I have a question. On the, down the, it says Cedar Wood Recreation Center.
Yeah.
Is that still open and workable, or I thought there was something that said,
Yeah. It's just,
was it the,
did you want to?
one of the city council meetings?
So we'll be covering that in the department report, but you have a good catch that on this work plan, Jill, we should update this to say Cedarwood property or Cedarwood Park, since it is no longer the recreation center. You're correct. Community center as a whole, that project will not continue due to several factors, but the main factor being the very high unanticipated cost. And we will cover that a little bit more in the department meeting.
Yeah, it was the Community Recreation Center, and trying to get a good description of it, because there will be recreation on site, and so that we can aptly name the project. So as soon as we get some preferred alternatives, I think it'll be a little clearer, but yeah, it is the Cedarwood project, I guess we could call it.
Did I miss something on that? Did you, Carl, did you just say that I heard that we're no longer doing the Cedarwood Recreation Center due to budget?
Correct. We're going to go through that in our a little bit later in the department report. And then I think that you were all invited to the Cedarwood meeting last week that we had with the community to go over some preferred recreation that is there at that site. But that is correct. We're revisioning that.
And Brian, we sent out an email with the press release, the news release. And I also, if you go to YouTube and put in Cedarwood public meeting, you can watch the public announcement on that Sarah
Okay.
held last week.
All right. Yeah, it looks like I guess I missed the email. Thank you.
And I apologize. I've made a note here on the agenda. In the future, we'll make sure to review the order of these items to try to put changes up front so that we can catch up on that stuff before getting to this. So I'll make that change for the future.
For the North Cove Park and Boat Launch, it says review concept plans and design. Is that just somebody going to bid on it, or
No, we're in the
develop somehow?
Yeah, we're in the very beginning stages of the design for that project. So as you know, it's reaching the end of its useful life. And so these are the wooden docks that are down at the North Cove Boat Launch. There would be guest moorage, day use moorage. And so we're looking at, we'll be hiring a consultant, and we're also working on just and internally on some concept plans for North Cove. We've also applied for a grant for that property. So more to come. And so we're thinking 2025 is a good target date to take a look at that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would you like me to share the 2024 work plan up on the screen?
Oh,
so
that'd be
you guys can
great.
see that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And just as soon as it comes up, make sure it's big enough for everybody. So we successfully renamed 20th Ball Field to Westlake Park. We also successfully named the trail that starts at that same location to Bayview Trail, so those two were completed. From Eagle Ridge plans, we did review the 30% engineered plans and are now working towards the 60% plans, which you will see reflected in the 2025 work plan in front of you. We have not proceeded onto the playground design, and so that is still continuing, and you'll continue the feedback through the process, of course. The Cedar Brook Community Center it was changed, as you see on the paper, to reflect direction for the property and future park itself. Last year, the department was not able to advance the North Cove Boat Launch project, simply too many projects for all of engineering and project management as well as parks. So we've added that back to the 2025 plan. And then I know not everybody has visited every park, and so we want to carry that over to 2025 and make sure everybody sees all the properties that you have the opportunity to give input on and make future decisions about. What we did was take away the quarters, the projected time frame from one to the next, because that really can depend on a lot of factors out of the department, and we don't want to set quarter goals that might not be able to be met. So we just took away those timelines out of the 2025 plan. Does anyone have a question about the 2024 plan? Go ahead and stop sharing that.
Does anyone have any input on the 2025 plan?
Where it says visit all city parks in 2024. You already saw that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as of right now, just to kind of reiterate a little bit, so far for the 2025 work program, we're going to amend at the top. So it says 25 on the park visits to say 2025. Is there any other changes or modifications
we-
before we vote?
Should we put back in Eagle Ridge? Oh, it's not up there. The playground.
It is on the proposed plan under Eagle Ridge and then number 2.
Oh, I didn't see that. There we go.
Jack, then the other change we mentioned verbally was changing Cedarwood Recreation Center to
Oh.
Cedarwood property.
Correct. Sorry, I did miss that. I have the note here on the side. Thank you.
So if we're just gonna be reviewing the 60% plan, does that mean that work still won't be starting in 2025 on Eagle Ridge?
That's correct. Yeah, that the project, you have already reviewed the 30% design, and I believe the schedule for Eagle Ridge is 26 or 27.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions or input for the 2025? with the changes that we've noted tonight, then that will be the draft or the proposed work plan that will be presented to city council at your joint meeting.
Do we need to vote on it and adopt it?
Yes, if you want to just approve that this is the draft version or the proposed version that we'll be forwarding to city council.
I have one suggestion.
Sure.
On the visit the city parks, do you think it'd be better if we just divide that up like per month and then tell everyone they have to go, you know, January, February, you've got to go to these parks. And then that way you get feedback from everybody. And then then the next month or whatever, tell us to go to three more parks. And we can see what, you know, what the consensus is instead of, you know, one person going here and then 3 months later, someone else goes there. Of course, it's probably going to change.
But what we're looking at is really big picture stuff. So certainly if you see anything that needs immediate attention, pass that on to the Parks Department immediately, because we can send out a crew worker in the next week to get the small things fixed. But we want to get your vision for the bigger stuff. We want to make sure we never constitute a quorum out there, make sure not everybody goes to the same park on the same days.
Right.
But we also gave everybody the list so that you can have freedom in what parks work best for your schedule. So what I would encourage is, we could always reprint the list if you want a paper copy, but schedule yourself. Since we meet every other month, it's a great time in the off months to use this time as a placeholder to go and visit a park, or maybe on the weekend with family. Or
Well, I understand that. I understand it, but I just thought that if you got a consensus from everyone at the time, you know, not all going to the same park, but, you know, really concentrate on 2 or 3 parks and come back and then discuss it, you know, well, you know, Carl saw this and Tina saw this and I saw that, et cetera, that you could work together and get it, you know, a little tighter than one person saying something. And, you know, you might think of the parks department might think, oh, well, that's not really that important, you know, we can wait a little while. But if all the people that go there think it's something that's, you know, worth fixing right away. So that's just my thought.
So the department priorities that were accepted by the council when we first started, safety is first and foremost. So if it's anything that could cause injury to someone or is a potential hazard, those get fixed immediately. If it is accessibility and being able to access the park, those things are high as well, but depending on the cost, could be low or high barrier, might be things we have to plan for. And then from there, it's really about how do we build the parks in order to get the most use out of them. And those have to go into years of planning. A lot of those we are not able to execute. And so the purpose for me in asking everybody to visit the parks is, one, so that you know each one, you know where it's located, how it sits in the neighborhood, the feel when you walk in, and really start forming your own opinions about how they can be used, because we don't want everybody here to come to the same conclusion yet about how they can be used until we're ready to master plan that specific park. And some of these parks might not receive master plans or visioning for quite some years, just based on our capital plan and how much is available.
Bless you.
And the feedback, it's all going into the survey, and once it's done, we're gonna review that as a whole group to be like, hey, these are the high level things. We won't be reviewing what was broken and what we fixed, because those will be so far in the past, but be able to look at those higher visioning things.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any items that you want to see removed
From
from the work plan? And then the next question after that is, do you have anything you'd like to add? This is a working plan for your role.
So can you give us an example of things that we can add? Because I mean, I could think of tons of things I'd like to add. I just don't know that they would be relevant to the plan. Like, for example, with the North Cove boat launch dock, I've submitted like ideas to put up like an arch that says North Cove or something like that, similar to the mill spur one on the mill spur. Like would I don't know if that something like that is even an option. So I'm wondering what are some things that we might be able to add that, you know, the city would even consider?
So the board can always make suggestions about future items that would be developed or put in a park. But if you're gonna add it as a work plan for your board, you would have to create a subcommittee, or an individual would have to work on, well, potentially what would that look like? You'd have to come back to the board to show the different examples. You'd have to work out a budget. You'd have to get that cost, and then we would have to wrap this all up and propose it to council. So what the board can't really do is create more work for the staff in the department. If you choose to do work like that, it would have to be independent of the department, do all the legwork, and then possibly it's voted as a yes and money is found at the council level. Or possibly the board has to fundraise separately. So what I would suggest is that if that is a passion, it might be something that you work on individually and then add it to a future agenda. Before any meeting, if any one of you want to add something to an agenda, you just email us and say, hey, this is the topic I want to discuss about next time, and we can always add that on. What is easier for the board to do are focusing on items that are already happening in parks. So looking at the capital list to say, hey, how can I contribute to those? Or taking on projects that are small without a budget in order to do in between meetings and then bring back. So if you know you're visiting a park and see something specific, you could always add that to an agenda if it's something larger that you want to talk about. If you wanted to have a suggestion as, okay, what is something I could add here? Well, something that's not added onto here might be analyzing all of the playgrounds. When we did do playground presentations, the department did state what we thought, you know, would be future playgrounds replaced and which ones wouldn't be. But you haven't really looked at all the different play activity in all the park and looked deeper. The department will be moving forward next year with a full comprehensive plan update. We have moving forward in budget, although budget's not fully approved, to actually break off and do an official pros plan.
A what?
It's called a pros plan.
What's that?
Parks, Recreation and Open Space Plan.
There you go.
So it's a really comprehensive plan. As you are familiar with that Parks chapter of the comprehensive
Mhm.
plan,
Mm,
this is a standalone plan.
got it.
And then it's adopted by reference into the comprehensive plan.
Got it.
It brings us up to industry standard with Washington State.
So it'll be a real deep dive, and I know that there will be meetings that you will be asked for feedback on the different milestones. We have not, but first, of course, we need to know that it is maintained in the budget throughout the entirety of the budget process and formally adopted. And then, which we're hopeful that will take place. And then we'll go out for a consultant. And then once the consultant is hired, then they have a period of time where they'll be doing a lot of prep work and inventory. And then they'll be giving us deliverables, which you will be reviewing at your regular meetings as well. So that's something that will be
So,
ongoing.
so should we add something like, provide feedback to the department on various documents?
We can definitely add that onto the proposed plan. You would want to do, just make that amendment to or that suggestion.
So the action item would be pros plan, and the description would be to review documents, provide feedback,
At milestones.
review documents, and provide feedback on milestones.
And that will be replacing the comprehensive plan process
Oh.
for this upcoming year. So
Oh. Because now you're
that's
just
the way
going
that
to
we're envisioning
reference
it right
it
now.
in the comprehensive plan.
What's that?
Now you're just going to reference it in the
Correct.
comprehensive plan.
Yes. And so that will set forth a lot of the priorities for the department in the future, and then what's needed now, and a lot of analysis and looking at modernizing the way that we calculate our level of service.
Mhm.
So It'll be a little bit more strenuous than the comprehensive plan review that you take on every year. But it'll be exciting, really great stuff. So I'm excited for it.
So we've made a note to add the pros plan and review documents, provide feedback at milestones. Is there anything else that anybody would like to add?
Is there anything else we would give feedback on?
Well, we'll always bring items to you that bylaws say you should give feedback on. So
Mhm.
anytime it's gonna be a major adoption, anytime we're doing major revisions. Like when we went through the fee process, right? We brought the fees to the board before going to city council. And we also brought changes to policies such as the changes for the boat passes that would be accepted at different places. So those we regularly do. So I don't have anything else specific, otherwise we would have added it to the.
Yeah,
the-
yeah.
Yeah.
So do we need to make a motion to approve this plan or delay to the January meeting? Is that those are our options?
Yeah, you can table it or you can adopt it.
And I would suggest if you are looking to approve it, then you would just make the motion to approve the proposed plan with the changes noted tonight.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'm gonna make a motion to table it, just so we can talk about it a little bit more, because everyone just kind of, someone would have made the motion by now, and everyone just kind of sitting there, so I say table it.
A second.
So are you making a motion to,
Can we
are you
have a,
making a motion?
Yeah,
can-
so we have a first motion, then Carl's did a second, and then you can have a discussion specific to these motions.
right?
And then you vote, so it can either pass or fail, and then you can go back to a new motion if it fails, or it passes and you proceed.
Okay.
Or you
Okay,
can,
any discussion around the current motion to table the park board schedule for 2025?
I do have some thoughts that, is it January when we go in front of the city council?
it's typically December or January.
December or January? And so our next meeting would be January, correct?
Correct.
And would that meeting be before we see the city council?
If this isn't approved, I would delay that scheduling. What we do is
Okay.
I talk to executive staff.
Mm-hmm.
And the chair for the council always also has input on the dates, but we just agree on something, and that's when it goes onto an agenda unless another council member suggests or they vote for something different.
Okay,
So I would push it after this
Okay.
one, but it could mean that you then end up either having 2 meetings in January, or we push to have our annual meeting in February with city council. But note that is rather late. We typically do them in December or January.
and so I'm thinking, since we did discuss the, the work plan pretty well, we made some changes to it, that I'm kind of feeling that we could adopt it with our changes. And let's have it in place so that we can have that meeting in January and only have one meeting in January. That makes sense?
Yeah, I'm also good with approving it with the changes, since we can bring additional items to any future meetings that we want to discuss. And this is very similar to last year's plan. So I think we'd have to vote. So I think in order to, does anyone else have any discussion items that they want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to hear from Roger again, what his thinking is, so I can understand that.
Well, I understand the work program, but then Sarah threw some other stuff in there, like this whatever that she said. it was.
Pros plan?
pro
Mhm.
plan. I mean, I don't know what that is. I don't think anyone really knows what that is. And you're gonna throw it in there and it's like, we've never really talked about it. That's why I said we should table it. So we could, learn more about this, what it means.
Yeah. And I'm happy to give you an overview of that now or summary, or unless you want some more in-depth information when you, at a future meeting. The pros plan is, we have the comprehensive plan, which is the chapter that you review each year. And sometimes we do a major update and sometimes we do a minor update. We are due to do a major update next year of the comprehensive plan chapter. The industry standard is to have a formal PROS plan, which is an acronym that's Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan. So it's a real deep dive into the department and to the program of Parks and Recreation in any jurisdiction. So think of the comprehensive plan chapter, and then this would be a more in-depth look at that chapter, and then the chapter would probably grow. So that then in our comprehensive plan for the city, because the comprehensive plan guides the efforts of all of the departments in Lake Stevens and our capital facilities, and then our projects moving forward. It's an overview of public works, parks, planning, finance, all of it. This is a real dedicated look into the parks chapter, for lack of a better term. So then it would become the plan that then is adopted by reference into the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan, the chapter of Parks and Recreation would be replaced by a PROS plan.
And the pros plan, does the Parks Board have anything to say in it, or is it just you guys?
It would be very similar to how we do the comprehensive plan, the Parks chapter of the comprehensive plan right now with you. So we bring it to you. Generally, if it's a minor update, we're looking for grammatical errors, things that have come off of the work plan. It's a pretty minor update. So we have maybe 1-2 meetings with the Park Board. On a major update year, we have several meetings with the Park Board. And that PROS plan would follow that same recommendation. So we would be coming to the Park Board to review those milestones. So when they have recommended level of service, do you want to go with this method or this method or this method? Those types of things are brought to the Park Board through the process of that. And it would replace the comprehensive plan process. Yeah.
So one
So could
method
we just, sorry, go ahead.
it could right now, our smallest parks have a 1/2 mile radius. Regardless of if there's a highway dividing it, or regardless if it's actually a private HOA park, you can't go to. And so one of the thoughts is we probably shouldn't have the private HOA parks included unless we include them only for the neighbors that can attend. So those would have very jagged property lines because they serve only those residents, right? And then the smallest parks, there's several ways to do them. You can do a 1/2 mile radius, but you can also do what the nation is pushing for, which is a 10-minute walk to a park. So that you can physically get there with you and your kids. So there's different ways to evaluate, and that's what a lot of what we'll be going through when we're talking about service levels and looking at where are the playgrounds, where are the basketball courts, where are the dog parks, all of those things.
So could we just add that to our work item agenda for 2025 to say review the PROS plan?
I did have that note down to add it to that based on the discussion tonight.
Okay, so I mean, if we do that, I'm personally good with approving the 2025 work plan. What are your thoughts on that,
What do you think,
team?
Carl?
I think that seems, I know I'm not Carl, but I think that seems fair. I think the thought of starting behind is concerning to me personally, because I don't think that.
Well, I
Is the
think,
best way
I
to
think
start.
Jill, summed up this pro plan. I had no idea. And she made
Oh, me
sense,
neither.
she made sense of it to me,
Mhm.
and I understand which way it's going.
Yeah.
But that's why I wanted to table it, because I didn't know what was, what was what, and what was that, and everyone just kind of sat here. So I'm glad that, thank you, Jill, for explaining it. And if the members want to put it back to a vote, I'm willing to.
But we have to vote on this motion.
We have to vote on the original motion, which we would have to vote to oppose it and then create a new motion.
Carl, do you have any thoughts on this or? Not really. Okay.
And you can state
So,
after discussion, I would like to change the motion from tabling to approving
Approving.
with the amendments mentioned and noted tonight for us to move forward to council. So, and then we would vote and go from second it and vote from there. So
That sound good, Roger?
Oh, yeah.
So you want to amend your motion?
Yes, I'll amend my motion to cancel it and take a vote on the original motion.
I'll second it.
So let's make sure that we.
yeah, I think we need to,
Your
we need
motion
to,
need to amend your motion to withdraw the tabling of this and to adopt the 2025 work plan as amended.
Do you want to say that for me or do I have to say that?
No, I think I restated it, so we're now good because you agree, and so
Yes.
yes, I think we're good to vote now.
okay, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
All right, now, so 5A.
So 5A is up next, and that was an amendment to the agenda.
And so I would like to have a discussion about what each member of the board thinks. How are we relevant, given that we have a park department? Like, are we providing value? Is it time to do something different? Is it, I don't know, I just feel like when I think about the Cedar Woods and had a text out there that told the public that park department decided that we couldn't fund it and that there will be a public meeting. We didn't get ours until later notification. And I thought, okay, so do you need to tell us ahead of time to give you input? Or does that help you at all to give us input? And because we weren't asked for our input. You know, we were normally in the past, we have a board discussion about something and then there's a public meeting. And we didn't do it that way. And then I read that in the update for today that the passes that are at the various parking locations. Now, did that come before us? Okay, and I just missed it.
It was in the same meeting where we brought a huge list of fees. That was the same meeting where we also discussed.
Oh, okay. So I'm just kind of feeling like I want to make sure I'm adding value.
Mhm.
And that we are looked at as something that is a resource for the department. And I just am not feeling that way right now. And it's just a feeling. So I wanted to see if anybody else is feeling that way. And it could just be me because I'm having a day. And which is fine.
well, I personally, the meeting frequency, and I know you guys are, taxed with work and stuff, but every 2 months is just, that's why we're missing all the little gaps between them because it's just too spread out. It's too far away. And I mean, I've gotten a few, I mean, I don't check my email all the time, but don't remember seeing a lot of updates of something that in that 2-month span where we didn't get any information. Then we come to this meeting and all of a sudden, you know, well, this happened and this happened. And it's like, so, and I know that, I mean, is there a way that we could have the meetings once a month and you guys find someone in your department that could come and run these meetings? Or do you guys have to be here for the meetings? Because I know you guys are working. I mean,
Mhm.
It
plain and
takes,
simple.
it takes a minimum of 6 to 8 staff hours to prep for these. In addition to, one person has to now run the technology. You saw how much difficulty I had in lieu of Jacqueline. Jacqueline has to take all of the meeting notes, type them up, process them. And we need at least 2 people to attend. So we could go from 3 staff member to 2, but there would likely be a little more issues with
Mhm.
technology flow and knowledge base at the meetings. For meeting frequency, I would have a really hard time going back to 1 time a month because we still have members that can't attend every single meeting, even though we're at the 2-month frequency. But what I would recommend is if you're flurry on what happened because it's been 2 months or you missed the last meeting, these are all recorded right now live on YouTube. You can go
Mhm.
back and watch them to refresh your memory or to catch up on what you missed.
But what about in that, between that 2-month period and you guys did put a major change in there? I mean, are we supposed to, oh, I'll just look at YouTube? No, you should contact us as members and say, you can look at YouTube. This is what we plan in this meantime between the 2 meetings. I think that's what everyone's kind of missing is that we're just not being fully updated on everything until we come to meetings.
How many of you opened the email for Cedarwood property that told you about the press release and also invited you to the public meeting? And how many of you opened that before the public meeting? Okay, so not everybody's getting the information because even though the department is trying to communicate, the members are not reading the communication. I cannot help that. We cannot pick up the phone and call every member every time that we have a press release
I understand.
or changing information. What you can do in order to help yourself get extra information is on the website, every single public resident as well as you can sign up for all of the news releases. What that does is when we put out an official press release, whether or not we choose to send it directly to the Parks Board members, it can actually message you. So if it is something we put out to the Parks Board, now you would get the message twice, higher likelihood of seeing it. Or you might be getting stuff that City Council's putting out, or things that affect the roads in front of parks, which really is maybe Public Works instead of parks. And so I would encourage all of you to peek at the agendas for City Council. Maybe you can whitelist our email addresses if they're going to junk mail or favorite them. If it's an email address you're using, like mine, that just gets 1,000 in my personal every single day. I now have a second email that I use that doesn't get all of that. So there's some things we can do to help improve that. But we do try to put out information. As far as the Cedarwood property not coming to this board before the decision was made. Literally, we sat with the engineers in order to proceed with an RFP and found that this project was nearing the $7.5 million mark.
Wow.
This project was supposed to be $1.2 million when I walked back in the door 2 years ago.
Wow.
It was a budget that the city did not anticipate. And
Right.
even though we'd increased the budget to realize it at about a $4 million gap, even after receiving $2.5 million in grants, we still had a $1.5 to $2 million gap that was not filled. And so when that gap became even larger at the 7 million, we sat down with the mayor and our city administrator and said, here's where we're at with the project. What do we do? There's no way to close that financial gap. And so before going public, we have to work with our granting partners not to lose the grant. We can't just put out a press release without talking to them first. We had to talk to the YMCA partnership. And then the process was to do a press release, to do a public meeting, to now say, here's where we're at and here's how we're going to proceed. And it's all being updated in the budget's capital process as well. And so I know it seems like, hey, maybe that should have come to the board first. but we're just not able to with the way that it progresses. And so I apologize, there's some things with government that are just decided at different levels for different reasons. But we can never develop a park without your input, right? We don't try to acquire properties without it being on our comprehensive plan, which had already been discussed at some point. And so these things sometimes might seem like, hey, we haven't discussed them for 2 years, but if it's on the comprehensive plan and a placeholder for a budget, if a property becomes available, it may get shotgunned forward
Mhm.
because of those two elements already being complete.
Mhm.
But I want every single member here to feel value, to feel like you have a purpose here, because your time is very valuable. And whatever, we can do to adjust, so whether it's the goals that you want in your work plan or things that you want to do between meetings, or maybe you just want to show up to meetings and vote on things, those are all okay options. And every board member might have a different level that they want to contribute.
That's why I wanted to
Support.
hear
Yeah.
what everybody's thinking.
I have a question. What, I read the press release and I don't know if I read it properly. Is it because that LEED certification was very expensive?
It's one of the factors. When we got the cost per square foot back from the estimator, it was, the cost of construction has definitely gone up. So if we downsize the project to accommodate the budget, then we wouldn't have a usable building, for the purpose of recreation. So now we're looking for something that can be a 3 seasons or, possibly covered. We discussed a lot of different things at the meeting and heard back from the public on that. It was a good meeting. Once we have the spine of, what you want to see there, then we hire a designer and an engineer because they have to tell us whether or not it'll fit and work through preferred alternatives. So then those alternatives are brought to the public and to the park board for input and feedback. So
And is that why the public meeting was held before we were able to give you feedback outside of the public meeting, but in a park board setting?
the meeting was called because we had put out the press release and we wanted to get, the public for one to know that this is the reason, we need to revision this property. And then getting that feedback from the meeting and then from the park board and from all of the different, stakeholders. We have a survey out there as well. When a project like this changes, then we look for what do we still need to provide in this area? And there's a service gap in this particular area of the city. So then what is the preferred alternatives? We know we can't put in a swimming pool there, for instance. So there is some framework that we have very loosely put together of, these are excluded based on different reasons why they are excluded. And then the biggest thing is knowing what does the public want? Because for us to bring something to the park board, we want to know we have community buy-in. And so that's so important, that you are out talking about projects and getting feedback from your different stakeholder groups that you belong to, or your friends, or, whatever groups that there are, to bring ideas forward so that we can get some consensus. So we know we have needs in the community that we don't have in our parks currently. So as those items come up, then we look, hey, is there space to put this here? Is there space to put this there? And so then we look for the best site for that piece of recreation. So, and, trends change and the desires of the public changes. So we want to stay in tune with that and find out, what does the public want there? So for the park board that's why it's on your work plan. So once we have, public engagement of saying, hey, what is we know we need a community center. It's not going to work here. So then that goes still, it doesn't go away. It's still, you know, going to be looked at and for alternative sites. But then what can we put on this site for that community? So.
And so you want to bring that answer to us for consideration.
Correct.
Got it.
It's really kind of all the channels personally that I can get for input, I'll take. So if the timeline is different, you know, if we can't get to the park board before we can get to the public, you know, when we schedule our meetings, we have to look at what's been rented, what's available, what's out there, what other competing, you know, interests do we have for different public meetings, and then we can schedule it. It gets on the schedule.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah, I
there
had a
was
conflicting meeting. I really wanted to be there, but
there was a sense of, you know, we announced it, so we don't want to then say, you know, talk
Right.
to you next year. We wanted to have it before, you know, we go into the next year's planning and try to get as much feedback.
and you probably had to consider it in budget.
Yeah.
Right? Like you were doing your budget plan, right?
It was changed on the capital plan.
Yeah, that's what I thought about that too, is like, oh, you're probably having to roll up your budget for next year and had to make some decisions about your budget.
Right. Yes. So timing wise, that's probably, you know, that's why it's rolled out the way that it is, but it's still on your work plan to provide, you know, you're the principal advisory body to the city council on parks and recreation services. So that's,
One last thing.
Yeah.
If you have something that's of urgent concern, would you call an emergency meeting for the Parks Board to discuss things or no?
I don't know about discussing, if there's not, you know, go ahead. I'm trying to think of a situation where you would give us feedback and we would not have, you know, moved forward with the plan, or the mayor wouldn't have moved forward, or the administrator.
So say something new and unexpected came up. Which is required to be passed through the Parks Board, and those items are spelled out in our bylaws. So if that happened, yes, that's when we would call an emergency meeting. So let's say that tomorrow we get the 60% plans for Eagle Ridge and we go, we can't wait 2 months to approve these. We need a special meeting. We need to review them sooner than later. Or let's say a mistake was made in the fee approvals. Or perhaps I just recognized a fee that has to be updated because of increasing costs, or maybe it never got approved and we just recognized it, items like that. Fees are supposed to come to you before going to council, so that would be a special meeting. So there are certain things that we would call a special meeting for, and I know we have called a couple special meetings for voting items that we have to do. We've been able to plan them at least a couple weeks in advance instead of calling like a 24 or 48-hour meeting.
Right.
It would be unlikely that we have something come out, because if it was a safety item, we can just shut it down without, we don't have to get permission to shut down a safety item or take something out of commission.
Now, is there anything that you could send us personal, or not personal, but emails where we can put, you know, give our, you know, comments on, or is that void of the whole city schedule?
If we are going to ask all board members the same question and receive feedback on it, that constitutes quorum.
So you have to have a meeting.
Yeah, the open
Yeah.
public meeting act.
And as a reminder, this year we did pull 2 special meetings and we notified you guys ahead of time with an email. We added a meeting and you guys had attendance. So, and so we've done that and we would continue doing that on the months that we don't have, or we need to change it. We would notify you guys as soon as that was set up. So.
Well, I think for me, I have to get over the fact that we don't do as much as we did. And sometimes I'm like, how come we're not doing this? How come we're not doing that? And that we have a very capable department and extremely capable department that are doing the things that need to get done. And so,
Examples?
well, we used to hold the public meeting. So we would have the park board meeting, we'd open it and then we'd close it for the public meeting. we'd have the public meeting, and then we would have our discussion that would close the public meeting, then we'd open up our meeting and have the, uh, our discussion too, based on what we heard.
That's for land use.
Do you know if it was for the open houses, do you mean? Or like the designs for parks? Or the public hearings? Because you did hold a public hearing earlier this year for the naming, and you're still the principal hearing body for park naming.
Well, that's a good question. It could have been for, I don't remember. Anybody else remember?
So-
Yeah, go ahead.
I remember there was a time when when this board, and that was way before me, quite a few years before me, actually did planning items that are now
Oh.
solely with the planning board. And so that would have been that frequency difference.
Hmm.
There are certain things that we still hold official public hearings on, such as the naming. But I bet the frequency that you're referring to is back when.
When we were
Yeah.
doing all the.
Yeah, you used to be the hearing body for some permits. So if someone wanted to have an event permit, I believe, and if there was like an event, because a lot of them were centered on the lake,
Mhm.
that was before my time.
Mhm.
Carl might have remembered some prior to me,
Mhm.
but with the institution of special event permitting
Mhm.
through the planning department, that was no longer
Mhm.
brought to the park board, but I don't know exactly what year that was because that was prior to me. But you, since I have been here, I know you hear, like the scoping, you give feedback on milestones during park development,
Mhm.
and you advise the city council on certain campaigns and, initiatives, excuse me, of moving forward. So if we get feedback from you, I believe even on the fees, then when we present those to city council, we say, this has been reviewed by the park board and they forwarded a recommendation. So that the city council has that information at the time that they make their deliberations.
Well, like I said, I'm just having a day and go ahead,
I
Roger.
think that you might be referring to when we've had a board meeting
Mhm.
and they had all the displays up where people could go and mark stuff on it. And then they'd be done with that, and then we sit and finish our meeting off. But I remember always people being here and they walk over to this board, that board, and put their suggestions in.
Mhm.
And that's what you might be referring to. I think.
We did that for the 30% plans at Eagle Ridge earlier this year. We had the board set up and let.
And we did it for Sunset. Beach.
Sunset Beach.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then there's been other ones before you guys were here.
Well,
Yeah, so
I
the
can't
open houses.
speak to what it was because my brain doesn't remember, but we had, but I know that as president, I would open the meeting and then we'd close the meeting to open the public meeting, close the public meeting and open the board meeting again. So I don't remember why or what we were doing. But so it felt like we were being out of the loop.
I think that might have been times when I remember Russ was there and we had a bunch of planning work and public comment on North Cove Park designs and things like that. I think I remember that as well.
So it's stuff that the planning department does now.
Well, they were typically, from what I recall, and you can correct me, Brian, if I'm wrong, are you talking about the open houses for the designs?
That's what I recall. Yeah, the open houses, and we would have them during the park board meeting. And then we kind of open it up. They had discussion, and sometimes I think it was just public comment as well, where they had brought something forward ahead of time, and we had planned on some public comment, like we do every meeting, where we say, are there any public items to go over? But I think
Yeah,
I also
that's
recall Yeah,
that's
I also
great.
recall having those meetings with and much earlier when Russ was here and he was kind of sharing plan items with the public for North Cove, and like there was a bunch of different ideas that have been drawn up and things like that, and people were looking at, and similar to like, you know, putting the red dots on what you want to see.
Yeah.
I don't know, Tina, if that's kind of what you were remembering as well. That's
Yeah,
kind of what I
I
recall.
think that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And so we will absolutely continue to have kind of open houses, open meetings. So like we did with Cedarwood, board members are able to attend those.
Right,
You're able to go
right.
back and watch the videos and make sure you have that.
Right.
I would have loved for this room to be packed full of people.
Was it?
It was not, unfortunately. We had 2 people in person and 3 people online. And so our goal is now we have a 3-week public survey open. We have 2 boards in the park so that everybody that walks by can see them. We've done our public push again. We've emailed everybody that took the survey last time. I'd love to get to the 500 mark on surveys.
Yeah, yeah.
100 would be great. 500 would be stellar. So everybody that you could tell and spread the
Okay.
word. I encourage you to come to those, public meetings. We will continue to have the style that you remember specifically, Tina, with opening and closing. Whenever it's something permanent like name changes, we'll continue to have the boards here in the 30% and the 60% of development. The public's welcome to come to those, and anyone you can drum up that have interest in the parks, I encourage them to come along.
Yeah.
We're trying to post notices in each of the parks when we have any kind of
Nice.
milestones to get the park users to come.
Yeah,
But I know everybody's so busy with their schedules, that's why we try to do hybrid and in person
right,
to overbooked.
right.
And Tina, I think, I recall there being like just an unprecedented amount of work going on in the city with North Cove and Lundin and
There
Davies
was.
Beach, and name changes for Davies from what I can't remember what it used to be called. And there was just all kinds of stuff going on, and things have just kind of, I think we've completed quite a few projects and things have slowed down. It does. I think I'd agree with you in that it does seem like there's less going on lately, right? At one point, it just seemed like there was an unprecedented amount of work. And I would tell people all the time, wow, Lake Stevens is just doing so much with the parks. And I think a lot of that's just kind of calmed down a little
Yeah.
bit as
We've
completed
accomplished
things.
so
Yeah.
much. We've accomplished.
I just had a question. I know you were saying getting the word out. I mean, is it possible, like I know for the elementary schools and the middle schools, they put out a weekly newsletter. Can the information and the surveys you're looking to get feedback on be included in those type of newsletters for that type of thing?
We've started to expand our partnership between the department and the school, and they're helping us with recruiting volunteers. And they're putting some of our larger events out for notice, but we're somewhat limited on how much we can fill into their newsletters.
Okay.
But it's a good idea.
And then I had a second question is, in this instance where everyone kind of found out about the Cedarwood not happening at the same time, is it possible, let's say I attended the meeting and then knew this meeting was coming after, and I can ask to have agenda items based upon that initial public meeting to be added to this meeting here? Is it possible to make that request?
Yeah,
Okay.
anytime you want to put anything on the agenda, it could be because you were walking through a park, it could be because of a press release you saw in our city or maybe in another city. You can just write parks at the email address directly. I always suggest that you copy your chair, just so that.
Yeah, out of courtesy.
Yeah, well, and then one other person knows also, that way it doesn't get lost in our junk mail. But you should always receive a reply back. Thank you, be glad I will put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Or, could we hold off another month? The reason why is we have a public survey and it would make sense to talk about Cedarwood all at the same time. But yeah, we could always add it, so it's like a specific line item when we dive into the why and what we're doing for public purposes. Right, yeah, absolutely.
Do board member reports work the same way?
Board member reports are generally you delivering information to the group. It's not generally meant for a discussion item. And you can have a really good example by watching about 5 minutes of a council meeting where they go around the room. They're just giving a one-way report as to what they saw or what they want followed up on in a future meeting, or what they want the department to follow up on. Often after a city council meeting, I'm emailing back the council within a day or two with more information, or Aaron is with Public Works has started putting it in the next week's department report. So there's different styles and ways to get that dialogue flowing.
But there is also the upcoming agenda items, which is when
That's
if
what I
a
was-
board member wanted to say, hey, I'd like to put this on the agenda for next time, you can put that, you can say it at this meeting, and then, of course, we incorporate that in the next one.
And I would highly encourage, if any of you want to have more involvement and have a specific topic or item that you want to focus on, maybe you want the full set of Frontier Heights engineering plans right now, instead of just that one page that we share with you. Maybe you want to look further into the engineering, or you want that copy so that you can go and talk to other groups, or whatever that might be. You want to list the playgrounds and talk more about that stuff, let us know. It doesn't have to be in this format. A single board member at any point can reach out to the department and we can get you information. Some people like to be more active and kind of do work between board meetings. And other people certainly just want that higher level ones for.
But are we representing the city though, if we took something like that by the reins? And would the city go, well, you can't do that because, you're just, doing that on your own?
You can always give the department one-on-one feedback. That's fine. And if you're going to other organizations and going, hey, look, have you seen the Frontier Heights plan? You're able to spread the word and talk about that, just like any member of the public who would print it off and do the same thing. You can tell people that you're on the Parks Board, you just can't make promises or votes or permanently red pin it and say you have to change it because I said so, right? You have to bring it back. And the board could vote that the department changes their plans. But then it would be your vote, and the department could say, yeah, that's a great idea, we recognize that, we're gonna do it, or we can't do that because of this. And in that, it would be a triangle, right, where the city council has the final say. And that's that balanced government, that's what we want.
If I may add just a tiny bit, this is Jacqueline. For just a little reminder on emails, if you want to add a single person to your email to us when you're making a suggestion, please make sure it's only one additional person so we don't accidentally create a quorum through email, because then we do have to notify, put publication out and all that stuff. So if you're going to email Parks and say, hey, please add that, you can add one person, but try not to add any more than that to make sure we don't accidentally start a quorum with that. And then I just want to throw the reminder that I do publish our agenda on the Friday before our meetings. So if you do want something added, please make sure it's before Friday. So as you think of it and you want it, go ahead and send the email. We can put it down in their notes to have it added. But I just wanted to add that little tidbit. Any questions about that?
No. Well, thank you for the discussion. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So up next is the November 2024 Parks update. Jill?
Thank you. So we have an upcoming event, Winterfest. It's going to be December 14th from 4 to 7 here at North Cove. It'll have the tree lighting and a lot of fun things planned for that time. The parking passes, we discussed those just briefly earlier, that the city council would like to discontinue the acceptance of the Discover Pass at North Cove Boat Launch. And then the Davies Beach to discontinue the Snohomish County Parking Pass. The Snohomish County Parking Pass we will take until January 1 of 2026. We'll give them a year's notice to let their users know that as well.
Can I ask a quick question? I
Sure.
just don't remember that at all. But why are we not taking the Discovery Pass?
Yeah, so North Cove Boat Launch is a water access site owned by the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And the Department of Fish and Wildlife provides free parking for anglers with their fishing license. So we are still continuing to take that, but we had been taking the Discover Pass.
Right.
But the Discover Pass, as you know, has many, many sites. And so we think that we're still honoring the agreement that we have with Fish and Wildlife and for the anglers that is what the intended use of that site is. But to discontinue taking the Discover Pass so that our pass remains, current and preferred at that site there.
Thank you.
And then Snohomish County at Davies Beach, that was just pursuant to the property transfer agreement.
Right.
So we had to notify them when we wished to not take that. And because we have the expense of maintaining that site, it makes sense that they would be the city's pass for that
Is the
site.
angler's license good
At Davies, it is not good at Davies because that's not a Fish and Wildlife owned site. It just goes back to the original.
Discovery Pass is good.
Correct. Yeah, it would just be the city of Lake Stevens after January 1 of 26. And then the day use that you can pay for just for the day. So you can get a yearly pass or you can get a day pass there.
We do, however, still honor the state's issued disabled veterans pass. And what that is if an individual has served military and they have a service connected disability at 30% or higher, they can go to the state to get a lifetime pass. So that is one that we do recognize Davies and North Cove still.
That's correct. The North Cove low float dock that was installed earlier this year and in September. And so they've been using it and they appear it's meeting their needs. Part of that permitting, just due to the way that it was permitted and the anchoring system, only 3 of the sections were installed. The other 2 sections we have in our storage, and those will be installed in the summertime. So it'll be a little bit longer. Westlake Park is nearing its completion. This project, as you know, is the dog park, and a couple of you attended the groundbreaking there. We'll be holding the ribbon cutting as soon as we're closer to knowing exactly when the project's going to be done. There is a chance that we're not going to be opening up the dog park because it's been hydroseeded and we don't know if the weather will allow us to get some good erosion control in there. If we open it up to the dogs, we don't want anybody's pet ingesting that, as well as just not getting a good coverage for it.
Right.
But we will be opening up the trail and the parking. And
Are they still gonna put in the ball fields, the practice fields?
yeah, the practice fields as they stand right now will just be grass fields, and then they'll be striped, and then in future phase we'll be coming in and developing those.
So as part of this project, we're not redoing the field, however, it's very lumpy. It isn't commonly used right now by the public
Right.
because of the unevenness of it. And so part of what you have on your work plan for 2025 to look at the recreational amenities for Westlake, we'll need to be talking about that. Do we need to regrade this athletic field and keep it here? If so, what size are we going for?
Safety.
What types of sports? And then I know at one point it was looking at, should there be a playground there? We'll need to analyze that, how close it is to the road, if that's still good, or what other recreational amenities might go there. So, internally, we're starting to talk about what are those possibilities, and we'll bring that forward to the future.
So we have discussed Cedarwood at this meeting and generally the overview of it. And due to the expense of the building, we'll be looking at some alternative recreation in this site. We had our first meeting last week, and we'll be having future meetings, and as well as bringing you the results of the surveys at upcoming meetings to kind of shape and form what can fit there and what can serve the public there. Excuse me, the fish art Those are the engraved art pieces from the Arts and Parks Foundation have been installed at, on the water feature wall here at North Cove. They look really nice. North Cove, as you know, since it has been built, has had some flooding issues or just water retaining issues. So earlier this year, staff analyzed and came up with an adaptive management plan. So there was a couple options of those to improve the existing drainage, clean it out. It was time for the rain garden to be looked at by the stormwater department. They've done that inspection. We also inspected a lot of the infrastructure and found that there were some deficiencies. So they're rolling that out in a timed process to kind of analyze, hey, was that successful before moving on to the next one? So as I said, the rain garden was maintained, and then the staff came and aerated and then spread sand on the turf there to try to improve that that drainage there. Yeah, Roger?
I'd just like to thank Tina and Carl for all the hard work they did on the fish.
Yeah, they look great. Good work.
And we didn't use any bait.
Perfect.
Question about
Yes.
Cove. Who owns the war memorial?
Technically, it falls under the Parks Department and it is a city asset.
Okay, is it ever gonna get grittied up again?
Are you talking specific, what are you talking specifically about?
The stuff that's coming down from on the wall?
There has been a lot of internal debate whether that concrete was stained or painted. Painting concrete will always
Right,
have paint deteriorate.
right,
I believed that it had been stained,
okay,
but you're not able to just restain
Yeah, I
it in the
know.
same way. It will always kind of bleed through. We've actually had an ample amount of conversations over the past year and a half, trying to decide who has the matching paint color. And it has been officially decided as of about 6 weeks ago, nobody has it.
all right,
And so the conversation began, how do we match that in order to reface the entire thing? But that will start its own routine maintenance with keeping it that way since it is concrete.
Never ever thought about just keeping it natural and just, pressure wash it every year or sandblast it and take all that stuff off.
once it's,
It just won't take care of the immediate need, so it's one of those things. Do we allow it to just stay in its current condition and then eventually it will slowly return to a concrete color? Or do we paint it, especially knowing the graffiti? We've been lucky that area hasn't seen a lot, but would have to be painted over if that occurs. We also have some crack lines in the concrete that would have been essentially have to be grouted and redone. And then there was supposed to be uplighting. That is still on my own whiteboard. I have a whiteboard of projects that exist since prior to me walking into the building over 2 years ago. Electricity still needs to be added with the additional uplight there.
Solar lights, they make them so good now that they work fine.
But they actually wired it and have it
Oh.
designed for that. So it's just a project that, because the department and the city were moving so fast, we were never able to go back and really 100% finalize things. Just like if you remember, the art tower is supposed to have a path around it with the new vegetation planted. It's another thing we talk about almost monthly in my office. We're finally at full staffing out in the field, so we're really hoping winter allows us to do some major catch up, and spring we can complete a lot of this back burner projects.
so it's not part of our refreshing North Cove at this time.
No, the adaptive management plan is focused on the drainage and yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. The playground at Lending Park had a new climber installed. The other one had just aged out, so that was replaced. It's getting some good use, although in this weather, maybe not so much. A new life jacket cabinet was installed at North Cove Boat Launch. Our old one was getting pretty old. Davies Beach Boat Launch had that plank that had shifted underneath the water on the launch itself. We had had a buoy out there for, gosh, the better part of a year, if not a year. And a couple months ago, the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office dive team came out and took some great underwater footage. So we were able to actually determine what it was. And so through permitting and then a volunteer effort from our dive team out of Everett, they're a recreational dive team. And they do the underwater cleanup at Davies Beach and North Cove. At all of our public spots, they kind of move around. They were able to tie a chain or get a chain around it. And then our staff came out and hoisted it out. So no more hazard there. And so the buoy was taken out. So we're pretty excited about that. And then 2 playgrounds in some pretty small pocket parks had reached the end of their lifespan and they were removed by staff about a month ago now, I think.
Which one were they?
One was up at the reserve, or both were at the reserve.
They were an identical structure. One was at crossings at Catherine Creek, and the other one was the reserve's 10th Street. And so it was the small wooden structure meant for the youngest of age groups, 2 to 5. And both of those had had some of the elements removed and boarded up due to deterioration over the years. So it was the final group.
Why is the Frontier Heights climbing playground roped off?
Frontier Heights Playground, I believe we announced it had been closed quite a few meetings ago unless that accidentally got left off a report. But essentially it was too close to the power lines. It was flagged by the utility company and they said that clearance didn't meet. So if somebody was to stand on the very top pole, essentially you're within the zone. So it had to immediately be shut down based on a utility company's email to the city and the potential liability. Since then, we have had meetings with the utility company and have all of the requirements in order to move it. We've been to city council to amend budget to allow us to hire a contractor. The last piece now is to get the potential new position of the playground onto a map in order to have it officially approved by the utility companies, as we don't want to move it to find that they still didn't approve its location.
Did they not approve it in the beginning?
The plans differed slightly and the utility company is stating that they didn't receive 3D plans. And so they weren't able to analyze that.
Got it.
The process with the utility companies has to go up to their board, it has to be accepted, they have to do public hearings, and because of that lengthy process, we're going to have to go through this process to accept the final design of Frontier Heights Phase 2. Those engineering plans are supposed to arrive at our office any day. And so we've decided to wrap both the Phase 2 of Frontier Heights as well as the playground and push them through together for approval instead of having 2 separate processes with them. I do hope to have that one open soon, or Jill and other staff have had me continually follow up with them at least once a week or once every other week.
Yeah, we do know it's a priority for sure.
Yeah.
And it is just the climbing structure. The rest of the playground is open.
Okay.
And that's all I have for the update.
I
All
got
right,
one.
thanks, Jill.
That, remember how that train is supposedly in the water and they found it?
Yes,
Has it ever been photographed? 'Cause that'd be a great thing to put in this.
yeah.
Of that and then the, you know, what it looked like new and what it looked like in the lake. I mean, it's been in there for so long.
Well, as you know, there's always a lot of lore around all different things. There is indeed a train that came off the track and the Navy came out and identified
My
it.
neighbor,
Okay. And it was about, at that time, from what I recall, it was about 11 feet under the substrate of the lake. So it was sunk down in the muck. So being able to extract that, I don't even know what they would try to use to do that. And I don't know of any additional information as far as who owned the train, when it went in and what it looked like. There's all sorts of folks that will talk about it, you know, from 50 or more years ago that said, yeah, you could see it at one point, but over time it's sunk down.
Yeah, I just,
So-
because it'd be kind of cool, even if they just had a picture of the train.
Yeah.
Did you know that this train
Yeah.
was sunk in the lake out there? Because not a lot of people know about that.
Yeah,
And you had lived here for a long time.
that's true.
The state, as soon as you were to even touch that thing, would be on you really fast.
Yeah.
Because there was talk of taking the bell off, there's been talk of, and in Lake Washington, people have gotten in trouble for diving and getting up old airplanes and stuff without going through the permits. The city would be, or the state would be quite quick to come visit you.
Yeah.
Historic items like the artifacts found from the lake actually do have to be reported to the city if found. And then I do believe that one of the info boards right here in the mill does talk a little bit about that
Does
train.
it?
So you can take a look after the meeting to read about it and suggest, see if there's anything else we might add.
I don't know. It was before my time. Carl, got anything more to add?
Well, I can remember when the steam was still leaking out.
You know, it's shocking how many trains went off the track. You know, there's a very common occurrence
Yeah.
back then.
Well, if you ever hiked that Kiln Trail up there.
Yes,
And how the trains went through there.
I know
to
it.
begin with, it's just like, you know, and then Road Canyon. the
Yes.
Tunnels in there, it's just like, they
yeah,
don't let you back there anymore, but I still go back there.
interesting.
All right, on to board member reports. So, can we start with Dawn?
I have nothing.
Carl?
What's the issue?
Board member reports.
Oh. Let's see, we finished the fish we just talked about. And I was asked how many we got, and I can't remember now,
Oh,
200 or something like that. Anyway,
I think it was
figured out a good
300.
way to fasten it. And there's a lot of different names on there. It's kind of interesting to see what.
Mhm.
So, but it really adds to the park.
Yeah.
And it helps the water feature.
That's great.
That's about it.
All right, Roger,
Nothing for me.
Tina,
Nothing for me.
Colton?
Nothing to report here. Thanks.
Okay, so I wanted to just bring up, I think there's a daddy-daughter dance gonna be held in the mill. That's coming up on the 30th. Were you guys aware of that?
That is by an outside organization.
Okay.
And I believe, have the facility rented.
That is
Okay. I've finished, I think, 95% of the parks visits. I sent those in to Jacqueline, and I think,
I received those.
That was
You can
about
see
all
they're
that I
in
had.
Jill on there, so thank you.
yeah, there's a couple of parks that I was like, I can't believe that's a park. So there's the other thing, when I went to I was surprised to hear that that Westlake Park is almost done, because when I went there, I saw that the parking lot looked like it was done, but it didn't look like anything else was really going on over there. Maybe I just missed it.
You miss it, because I
But like,
just, did today and they're doing a bunch of stuff with the heavy equipment.
Yeah, we have both of the parking lots have gone in, and then the bridge has gone in, the dog park has gone in. The landscaping is done for the dog park, the fencing. The last I was on site, and I know that they were working on it at the time, there was part of the fencing was in for that. And then the concrete for all the picnic tables had been poured. So we're coming down the home stretch. This weather is obviously going to be a variable. So as soon as we have what's called substantial completion, then we schedule the ribbon cutting and those types of things.
That parking lot's closed off though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's closed off. You can't get in. That's probably why I couldn't really see what else was going
Yeah.
on.
They'll be pouring their curbing and curb stops and then doing the plantings in the parking lot. So they leave it off, because there's portions of it that aren't complete. So it's not safe for people to drive in quite yet. So it'll be shut down probably until real close to the ribbon cutting.
Okay,
Brian, I just followed up the daddy-daughter night here at the mill. It's November 30th from 6 to 8 o'clock. I did
yeah,
have-
I've already forwarded that on to quite a few dads with young daughters, so I thought that was cool.
And also, Brian, just a note, you do need to prepay to get in. They only have so many tickets, so if you haven't bought for it, it is online, so it's
Yeah,
not.
my girls are all too old for that now. I used to really enjoy doing that. That was fun, but yeah, they're not a little too old now. They've aged out.
I don't see an age limit here.
In terms of wanting to go with dad. Okay, so it looks like upcoming agenda will be voting on a new 2025 Park Board Chair and Vice Chair. So be thinking about that for our next one. And it looks like that's about it.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All right, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Jacqueline.